In the bustling city of Lagos, Nigeria, Adebayo Okonkwo sat in his cramped office, surrounded by stacks of ancient texts and artifacts. As a professor of archaeology at the University of Lagos, he had dedicated his life to uncovering the hidden histories of his homeland. Little did he know that his latest discovery would unleash a terror that had been dormant for centuries. Adebayo's eyes widened as he carefully examined the tattered scroll before him. The faded text spoke of an ancient kingdom called Ile Ajase, ruled by a tyrannical Oba who practiced dark magic to maintain his grip on power. According to the scroll, the Oba's reign of terror came to an end when his own people rose up against him, burying him alive along with his cursed crown. As Adebayo pondered the implications of this discovery, his phone buzzed with a text from his longtime friend and fellow archaeologist, Folake Adeleke. "Bayo, you won't believe what we found. Get to the dig site ASAP." Without hesitation, Adebayo grabbed his gear and rushed out of his office. He hailed a taxi and endured the chaotic Lagos traffic, his mind racing with possibilities. When he finally arrived at the excavation site on the outskirts of the city, he found Folake standing at the edge of a deep pit, her face a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Look," she said, pointing into the darkness below. Adebayo peered down and gasped. There, partially buried in the earth, was an ornate golden crown, its surface adorned with intricate carvings and blood-red gemstones. "Is it?" Adebayo began, his voice trailing off. Folake nodded. "I think we found the crown of the Oba of Ile Ajase." As the two archaeologists carefully extracted the crown from its resting place, neither of them noticed the dark mist that seemed to seep from the earth around it. Nor did they hear the faint whisper carried on the wind. "At last, I am free." Over the next few days, Adebayo and Folake worked tirelessly to document and study their incredible find. They brought the crown back to the university, where it was placed in a secure lab for further analysis. As word of their discovery spread, the media descended upon Lagos, eager to catch a glimpse of the ancient artifact. Amidst the excitement, strange occurrences began to plague the city. People reported seeing shadowy figures in the corners of their homes, and an unusually high number of accidents and illnesses swept through Lagos. Adebayo, consumed by his research, paid little attention to these reports until one night when he was working late in the lab. As he bent over the crown, meticulously cleaning its surface, he felt a sudden chill in the air. The lights flickered, and for a moment, Adebayo could have sworn he saw a face reflected in the crown's polished surface, a face twisted with malice and hunger. Startled, he stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of tools. As they clattered to the floor, the crown seemed to pulse with an eerie red light. Adebayo blinked, and the moment passed. Shaking his head, he convinced himself it was just a trick of the light and his exhausted mind playing tricks on him. But the next morning, Adebayo awoke to find Lagos in chaos. Reports flooded in of people going missing, only to reappear days later with no memory of where they had been. Others spoke of nightmarish visions and an oppressive feeling of dread that hung over the city like a shroud. As Adebayo made his way to the university, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The streets, usually teeming with life, seemed oddly deserted. Those few people he did see hurried along with their heads down, avoiding eye contact. When he arrived at the lab, he found Folake already there, her face pale and drawn. "Bayo," she said, her voice trembling. "Something's not right. I've been having these dreams. Nightmares, really. About the Oba and his crown. I think we've awakened something we shouldn't have." Before Adebayo could respond, the lab door burst open. A group of men in black suits strode in, led by a stern-faced woman who introduced herself as Agent Amina Kalu from the Department of Antiquities and National Security. "Professor Okonkwo, Dr. Adalek," she said, her voice clipped and authoritative. "I'm afraid we're going to have to confiscate the crown. It's a matter of national security." Adebayo and Folak protested, but their objections fell on deaf ears. As the agents prepared to remove the crown, the air in the lab suddenly grew thick and oppressive. The lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. In the shadows, a deep, inhuman voice echoed, "The crown is mine. You cannot stop what has already begun." Chaos erupted as everyone scrambled to escape the lab. In the confusion, Adebayo felt something cold and metal pressed into his hand. When he finally made it out into the hallway, he looked down to see the cursed crown clutched in his grip. Without thinking, he shoved it into his bag and ran, Folak close behind him. They emerged from the university to find Lagos transformed. The sky had turned an ominous red, and strange, shadowy creatures prowled the streets. "What have we done?" Folake whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Adebayo shook his head, his mind racing. "We need to find a way to stop this, to put the Oba back to rest." As they made their way through the nightmarish landscape that Lagos had become, Adebayo and Folake pieced together the fragments of legend and history they had uncovered. The Oba's power, it seemed, was tied to the crown. To defeat him, they would need to return it to its original resting place and perform a ritual of binding. Their journey took them through a city under siege by supernatural forces. They encountered other survivors along the way. A tough-as-nails market woman named Mama Chidi, a street-smart teenager called Emeka, and a disillusioned police officer, Inspector Yusuf. Together, this unlikely group became a team, fighting off the Oba's shadowy minions and searching for a way to end the curse. As they traveled, Adebayo found himself increasingly drawn to the crown. At night, he would take it out of his bag, mesmerized by its gleaming surface. Whispers filled his head, promising power beyond his wildest dreams if only he would put it on. Folake noticed the change in her friend and grew worried. "Bayo," she said one night as they made camp in an abandoned building, "you need to be careful. The crown is affecting you." Adebayo laughed it off, but deep down he knew she was right. The Oba's influence was growing stronger, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could resist. Their quest led them back to the original excavation site, now transformed into a swirling vortex of dark energy. As they approached, the sky grew even darker, and the air crackled with malevolent power. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them, a tall, imposing man wearing royal robes and a cruel smile. The Oba had taken physical form. "Did you really think you could defeat me?" he boomed, his voice shaking the ground beneath their feet. "I am eternal. I am power incarnate. And now, thanks to you, I will reclaim my kingdom and spread my dominion across the world." The Oba raised his hands, and shadowy tendrils shot out, wrapping around Adebayo's companions. They struggled and cried out, but could not break free. Adebayo stood frozen, the crown clutched in his hands. The Oba's gaze fell upon him, and a look of recognition passed over the ancient ruler's face. "Ah, my faithful servant," the Oba purred. "Bring me my crown, and I shall reward you beyond your wildest dreams."
For a moment, Adebayo hesitated. The crown's whispers grew to a deafening roar in his mind, urging him to obey. But then he heard Folake's voice, cutting through the noise. "Bayo, remember who you are. Remember why we do this. To uncover the truth, to learn from the past, not to repeat its mistakes." Her words broke through the Oba's spell. With a cry of defiance, Adebayo raised the crown above his head and brought it crashing down onto a nearby rock. The gemstones shattered, and a piercing shriek filled the air. The Oba's form began to waver and distort. "No!" he roared. "What have you done?" Adebayo stood tall, facing the fading tyrant. "We've learned from history," he said, "and we're writing a new chapter, one where the people, not monsters like you, shape their own destiny." As the Oba's form dissolved into mist, Adebayo began to recite the binding ritual they had discovered in their research. His companions, freed from their shadowy bonds, joined in, their voices growing stronger with each word. The vortex of dark energy began to collapse in on itself, pulling the Oba's essence back into the earth. With a final, earth-shaking roar, the ancient ruler vanished, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, the red sky began to clear. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds. Lagos, battered but unbroken, emerged from its nightmare. In the days that followed, the city began to heal. Those who had been possessed or enslaved by the Oba's power awoke with no memory of what had transpired. The government, eager to avoid panic, attributed the strange events to a mass hallucination caused by a gas leak. But Adebayo, Folake, and their newfound friends knew the truth. They had faced an ancient evil and emerged victorious, not through brute force or dark magic, but through knowledge, friendship, and the strength of the human spirit. As life in Lagos returned to normal, Adebayo found himself changed by the experience. He approached his work with renewed vigor, but also with a deep respect for the power of the past and the responsibility that came with uncovering its secrets. One evening, as he and Folake sat in his office, poring over new artifacts, she asked, "Do you ever regret finding the crown?" Adebayo thought for a moment before answering. "No," he said finally. "It taught us an important lesson. Our history is full of darkness and light, tyranny and heroism. It's up to us to learn from both, to face the shadows of the past so we can build a brighter future." Folak nodded, a small smile on her face. "Well said, Professor. Now what do you make of this?" She held up a small, intricately carved figurine they had recently acquired. As Adebayo leaned in to examine it, he felt a familiar tingle of excitement. Who knew what secrets this new artifact might hold? Whatever they were, he was ready to face them, with knowledge, courage, and friends by his side. Outside, the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple. The city hummed with life, its people going about their evening routines, blissfully unaware of the ancient evil they had narrowly escaped. And deep beneath the earth, in a chamber now sealed by the binding ritual, the shattered remnants of a cursed crown lay silent, a reminder of the power of the past and the importance of facing it with wisdom and strength.